Lights Out, Chapter 36, Part 2. Mark. Mark, wake up. Mark opened one eye and looked at his wife. What? Someone's at the door. She says she needs your help. Mark had been sleeping deeply and his brain was not in gear yet. She? Who? Help with what? I didn't catch her name. She said her family was being attacked. Where? In the subdivision? His brain was starting to work. He jumped out of bed and into his clothes that he had laid out the night before. He glanced at his watch and saw that it was 12:30. No, she lives somewhere else. She said her father knows you. Mark grabbed his boots and socks and went to the living room. Standing there was one of the guards and a tall, thin black girl he estimated to be 18. Mark could tell she was pretty, but she was a mess. She was dressed in black sweats and running shoes. Her hands were visibly shaking. Her face was puffed up from crying, and she was perspiring to the point that her sweatshirt was soaked. The guard spoke first. Mark, this girl came running up to the gate asking for you. Before Mark could respond, the girl started talking in one long, run-on sentence. Are you Mr. Turner? My dad sent me to get you. Oh my God, he said you could help us. I hope I got here in time. He said you would know what to do. He said they would kill him and then... Oh my God, what they said they would do to me and Mom. It's horrible. We have to get back and help them. You will help us, won't you? Calm down. Just take a few deep breaths. The girl did as Mark instructed. Now, what is your name? My name is Trini Jones. My dad is Ralph. Ralph Jones, the lawyer? The girl nodded her head. Okay, Trini, tell me what happened. The girl started to get excited again. We woke up when they started shooting at the house. There was a cross burning in the front yard, and some men were yelling at Daddy. He started shooting back, and they all went and hid down in the ditch. He made me dress all in black and run to get you. How many men were there? Mark asked. I don't know for sure. Maybe 4 or 5. It could be more. I'm just not sure, Mr. Turner. That's okay, Trini. Mark tried to reassure the girl. Don't worry. We're going to help you. He turned toward the guard. Get down to the command post and have the Rovers meet me there in 5 minutes. We'll need all of the FRS radios. Also, have the CP wake the reserves. Tell them they have 5 minutes. This is not a drill. Have him call the sheriff and tell him that Ralph Jones's house is being attacked. You got it, Mark. The man wheeled around, went out the door, and ran toward the command post. Mark looked at Jess. Wake Jim and tell him what's going on. Tell him to have his truck at the command post in 5. Make that 4 minutes. I'm going to get Gunny. You take care of Trini. No, I'm going with you, Trini insisted. Okay, I don't have time to argue, but you will do exactly what I tell you to do. The tall girl nodded her head. Jess had already gone to get Jim. Mark ran back to his room and came out with his FAL and a bag of loaded magazines. His Colt was already on his hip. He and Trini sprinted out to the Jeep and headed for Abby's house. One of the guards was already knocking when Mark got there. Gunny answered about the time Mark reached the door. Gunny, we have a situation at the lawyer's house, the one who helped us after the MZB shooting. Now he has a bunch of MZBs or KKKs or something at his house. Can you come with us and bring your truck for some of the men to ride in? Sure. Did you wake the reserves? Yes, sir. Okay, give me a minute, and I'll be down to the CP. Gunny disappeared behind the door. Mark drove his Jeep down to the command post. Most of the men he had requested were already there. The guard who had brought Trini up to their house was filling them in. Mark spoke as some of the last men were arriving. He quickly told them what was up and said that this was strictly a volunteer mission. Jim drove up a few seconds later, and Gunny was less than a minute behind him. Gunny got out of his truck and spoke briefly with Jim and then a couple of the reserves. Jim got out of his truck, and the 2 neighbors climbed into Mark's Jeep. 2 of the reserves climbed behind the wheels of the trucks. Every man there climbed into one of the pickup trucks. Mark climbed behind the wheel and started down the hill with the trucks in tow. The gate was already open, and the vehicles made a quick right turn onto the county road. As they drove, Gunny asked Trini questions. How many are there? I think 4 or 5. The girl had seemed to have regained most of her composure. Where are they in relationship to the house? When I left, they were all in front, as far as I can tell. A couple of them had been behind the house, but when Daddy started shooting at them, they ran back to the front and got into the ditch with the others. Are there any houses close to yours? No. We have 10 acres, and it's farmland all around us. How much cover is there around the house? What do you mean? Are there lots of trees and stuff for people to hide behind? Most of the property around the house is pretty clear. There are a couple of big trees close to the house, but then it's all grass for quite a ways, maybe 50 or 60 yards. Then it's thick brush on the sides and in the back. There's not much between the house and the road. Good. How long ago did this start? The girl looked at her watch. I left the house 33 minutes ago. It probably started 10 minutes before that. Mark raised his eyebrows. That meant Trini had run from her house to Silver Hills in about 25 minutes. It had to be over 3 miles, he thought. Mark turned onto the gravel road that the Joneses' house was on. Did they seem to be in a hurry? Gunny inquired. Daddy said he knew how these guys work. They wanted to go nice and slow and scare their victims as much as possible. He figured I could make it to Mr. Turner's and get help before they did much besides shoot out the windows in the house. Gunny nodded his head thoughtfully for a moment and then spoke to Mark and Jim. Cut off the headlights and slow down. I don't want them to see or hear us. But Gunny, maybe we could just scare them off if they see us coming, Jim objected. Jimbo, you ever scare off a big rat? Yeah. What happened? He came right back. That's right. The only way to get rid of a rat is to catch him. Trini, tell Mark when we get about a quarter mile from your house so he can stop. Less than 2 minutes later, the convoy was stopped and everyone was listening to Gunny's instructions. Occasionally, a shot could be heard from up the road. More often than not, it would be followed by a string of obscenities. When Gunny was finished laying out his plan, he asked for questions. What do I do? Trini asked. I want you to stay here and tell the sheriff where we are and what our plan is in case he shows up before we get our trap set. Yes, sir? Anything else? The old man asked the men, as if he knew there wouldn't be any more questions. Then let's move out.